Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. I do appreciate. Yeah, interesting conversations here. Can I go on to Champion, please? Champion, do come through.
Ndeipi mukwasha?
Mwishe mreje rete zvake.
Ndiri right. Unoziva mukwasha,
Mm.
if we start to talk about accountability, one thing that we have to do is to like bring accountability as an umbrella that gives you two types of accountability. One is horizontal accountability
Mm-hmm.
that is happening in citizens themselves. Then you have got another one which is called the vertical,
Mm-hmm.
which runs through the chain of command. Now, the next question that you should ask yourself is, how does accountability becomes effective when horizontal accountability itself is not effective? That's number one. Number two, how are you going to ensure that there is accountability that is transparent, that is, let me say, that is also free? Because we all know that our state institutions are captured. So in any form of what you are trying to do, you can bring here Kariba disaster as an example of yourself and say to yourself, okay, I have got a Kariba issue. Who should be accountable? That's your first question. The next question is, okay, if then there is someone who is going to be accountable, why alternative sources of transport are not there? Then you hear someone comes here and say, oh, you know what, we need to raise tax. You know, raising tax or not raising tax does not mean anything as long as tax morale is concerned. Because remember, tax morale talks about the willingness of the individual taxpayer to pay tax. And I think it is difficult for any individual taxpayer to pay tax when his state of the economy is down, like what we find in Zimbabwe. I think the Zimbabwean one, I don't think it's unique. We all know right now from CZI, 76.4, 76.5% of the people are in informal sector. And I think 24, 23% is formal. Now come back and now say, okay, we want to raise tax so that maybe we can be able to invest money in public transport. And mind you, the moment you bring the issue of taxation, there is reciprocity that should be. If I entrust you with my taxes, you must provide public goods and services to the extent that we feel compelled or we feel motivated to pay that tax. And now you find the issue of tax morale becomes an important subject. And get out from there from the tax whatsoever. Look at the what is it called? The Addis Ababa agenda for financing for development. What does it tells you? It tells you about let's enhance our domestic resource mobilization so that we can be able to foster development that is sovereign, that is not financed more by people from outside the country, which are the external sources of finance, of which you talk about loans and everything. But come back now to the issue of accountability, because we all understand the Zimbabwean situation, right? Then come back to the issue of saying, okay, even if we were to talk about besides accountability, we want to talk about service delivery. How can you have service delivery in a country that you find that like what I've said before, that institutions are what captured, right? Poverty is being weaponized, all right, and impunity is let me say it's encouraged. Because if you come here and say, okay, we have heard that this guy is your friend, then someone looks at his friend and say to you, what are you talking about? Where is my friend here? right? What does that tells you? The person doesn't want you to scrutinize him more. That's why it's now becoming funny. So in one way or the other, I think the issue of accountability, we have to look at it in a holistic manner, because when you look at it, weaponize the judiciary, what does that entails? If you were an opposition political player where judges are being told what to do, if they don't, because we do have got an example, a nice one. Jesima Jome, if you are not mistaken, she was removed from being a chair of Human Rights Commissioner. Why? Right? Why? Because we wanted to have yes men in our offices. So how are you going to effect accountability? That is something that you have to ask yourself. It's not something that I need to explain. Gara ipapo uzvibvunze kuti alright, saka takuda kuzobvunza mukuru tomubvunza tichiti kudii, takamira papi. Handiti? Besides that, here is the
Mm.
problem. When people complain that things are not going according to the standards or to the procedures, what do other people say who are part of Mbato and everything? What do they say? Oh, munotaurisai munovenga nyika. Ah, imimi, you are always negative. So the effect that we do have got a fight of one trying to correct, the other one trying to shield. Then in the end, there is nothing that is going to happen. That's number one. Number two, munomboziva here kuti advise kuti igamuchirwe inoda anoigamuchira, and anoigamuchira achifarira kugamuchira. Saka most of the time when you hear people saying to you, oh, you know what, tinongoya pano tongotaura this and that, taisafanira kuya pano tichitaura. If the country was working, most of these all people who are here, right, would be at work, and they would even spend less time here because things are working. But the issue or the fact that things are not working, what should be done? This is where this is a platform where people are now pouring, or even let me say throwing, or even maybe let me say let me say pavari kukandira zvichemo zvavo vamwe vari kungokanda nokuda kwete nokuda kwehanya, but vari kungokanda because hazvichabatsiri,
Right.
right? Izvozvi zvokada kutaura nyaya yekuti alright, let's talk about service delivery, let's talk about pension yavanhu vakuru. Handiti toda kuti tiitaureka kuti alright, pension yavanhu vakuru, kune umwe wakaibubunya, apedza kuibubunya zvikanzi aiwa mira uite seneta iwe. Handiti paakati inini veduwe, ndabuda panapa, inini njere dzangu hadzichashandi, dzangosangana sangana. Handiti senhanikire semutakura, zvikanzi mira uya uite seneta. So in a country that has got impunity like that, it will be very, very difficult for you now to say, oh, we want to talk about accountability, or we want to talk about this. Do you know that in a country where there is no freedom, accountability becomes a luxury, not a necessity?
Saka Ngitsano,
So at
and
what?
Zara, can I ask you, this question here? Tumboenda panyaya yavachamisa na vachingono. Kuti vachamisa vakanopindura mukoma Blessing Moyo. Vakati, I think there's an important lesson to be taken from Opo's critics. A party has to be a well-organized institution with a clear constitution and defined structures. And then Wachamisa wakapindira vakati, CCC had structures and the constitution, Wopfu is lying. And then Wopwell, he comes in and says, oh, you're accusing me of lying. And say good is well, CCC yanga isina constitution, yanga isina structures. Ko chitipuruvhira wakakuti tione kuti izo structure yacho yakamira sei, constitution yacho yakamira sei. Could he be wrong in wanting to put Rachamisa to task when it comes, to that aspect, inenge iri specific, given kuti ndo issue inenge yareizwa at that particular moment? That before we even, start, to talk about, I understand, where you're coming from, the broader perspective, where, you're taking us, to. But in terms of, being narrowing it down to the issue, at hand, um, could it, I mean, could he have been wrong in him demanding for then the evidence for him to account to his words and produce, these, evidential, documents?
Okay. The only problem that you have made is that when I wanted to analyze anything, I start with analyzing the person to say, okay, if Chamisa was your point person before,
Mm-hmm.
and now you go to the public and say, oh no, I need this, I need this. The first thing that should come into my mind is to say, what is the intention? All right, what is the intention of the person doing that? Because these people, they used to exchange information privately without us knowing. So in one way or the other, my first conclusion is there is an agenda, right? Before I can go anywhere, here there is an agenda. Because Jed, I want to give you my example. Jed, you know my number. Anytime you want, you can call your Mukarabaka. And imagine now Jed uya, Jed wakazodai. Chii chandatadza kutanga kutarisa first kuti alright ndinoda kutaura naNhingi. Why can't I talk to him in a way that I used to do? Right? Besides anything else, yes, of course, I'm not going to say that this was wrong or this was right. Here is the issue. Pandiri nini, in each and everything, the first thing to me is, what is your intention doing this? Then it gives me the room now to say, okay, so if you have got an agenda, what is that agenda that you want to pursue? Right? Then from there, the next thing now is to look at this to say, okay, since you have got an agenda, who are you serving? For what purpose? Who is going to benefit from this? Why? Because at one point, the same hope where we're saying, oh, strategic ambiguity is a master stroke. Now we have changed. Wamunyakose kamukombe uneburika, uku unomwiswa, uku unodurura. And that's what I can conclude there. And I don't want to talk more, because if I want to talk more and if you want to describe, you know that if I want to describe him in Shona, you will not even like it. So I don't want to go that route. But he must also know one thing. If you are being someone who is considered to be a friend, please respect the boundaries that you have, because you don't know who is who in life. At some point, ndopaya panonzi chinonzi bata chiri muruoko,
Mm-hmm.
handitika apa chinonzi siya chiri muruoko, chiri muropa hachisiwi, handiti. Kana kuti mombe hanzi uso hwenyati ndo huri mudumbu, huri pamuromo inofana ho
But
this and that,
I'm
handiti.
I'm I'm asking you as a journalist. We're taking away, the personal thing, to the side. I am doing my job as a journalist. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
uh,
can that issue then, come into play to say, oh, we used to be friends, or we used to hang out, together, or at one point, because of our relationship,
that
you used to
that
describe,
I
whatever it
think
is that
that
I was doing, in this positive light, etc. etc. I mean, can we then begin to, to say, Guti, that right there should override, um, or should take, precedent over, this aspect, that he was relying on to say, I'm a journalist and I'm asking you these questions as a journalist.
all right. The moment you do like
Mm,
that, besides looking at the
mm,
intention, I will also now like probe your journalism,
right.
because you can't ask me on an X space. It's just like saying, what's your opinion on munhu uyo, handiti iwe unenge uchimudescribe kuti munhu wakashata uyu, munhu wakashata. Wakundibvunza kuti what's your opinion on a public fora like this, right? Otherwise maybe ndogona kungoseka ndobva ndasiya. But at some point ndogona kungosiya pakadaro. Why? Because I don't feel comfortable to reply, especially sensitive matters on a public fora like X, like Facebook and so forth. Why? Because at some point you don't know who is going to be your next employer, especially if I'm talking about myself, right? To say, okay, I don't know who
But the
is my next
accusation
employer.
is coming
So
on in public fora. The accusation that is a lie is coming on in public fora.
the issue of saying that it's a lie, whether it has come on a public fora or whatsoever, what should be done is, if you are going to be provided with evidence of what you want, I think you should be able to say, okay, I got what I wanted, so let's leave this. But if you continue doing that, then by the end of the day, do you see that you are answering my first question? What is the intention?
No, but
Because
I'm saying, this thing is playing out in the public, domain. Why then would
no, it is
this, the accusation? Okay, they did, what they did, and then they started, accusing each other. One is saying, "Oh, you are lying. You are a liar. You are a liar. You all these things, that you're talking about here. You are lying. We had this. We had this. We had
that's
this. We
why
had this. We had this. Right? And,
that's why I
mm.
said
So,
before
where
you
do we
can
now
ask,
begin to want to take these things into the private, domain, when it has when it was
no,
being played in the
you
public
don't have
forum?
to. No, you don't have to take this into the private. Let me say private, to be private and confidential. Yes, of course, it happened here, but here's the
Mm,
issue. If I was me, I was going to ask him, what is your intention? Why I am saying this? Because it defines everything. The intention of someone who has been with
mm,
me, who has been supporting
mm.
me, who has been doing everything with me, or even, let me say, going out there posturing as if we are together. Then the same person comes in a public forum and asking me a question. The first thing is, what is the intention? It's done. So your intention is one of malicious intent. It's done. It's over. It doesn't have to change and whatsoever to say, no, it has happened way and way. No, it's not about the position. It's about the intention. Everything boils down to the intention. What is the intention of doing something? It's just like, let me give you an example, right? And that example, I know that some people, it's not going to augur well with the other people. But here's the example. We have got 95 people dead in
Mhm,
Kariba,
mhm.
right? Someone is maybe, let me say, embarking on a summit, while people are crying, while people are, let me say,
Once
people are
people are
mourning.
mourning, yes,
What does
yeah,
that tell you? Yes, what does that, what is the intention? What actually, what is the motive? The motive is the person does not care. So the fact that I know that you don't care, the rest is already covered. I no longer need to even to, let me say, open up myself to say, no, I want to discuss with you. No, I want to engage with you. No,
right,
the intention already is done. Your intention is malicious intent. It's done.
right.
This is my conclusion.
Okay,
So if it is about malicious intent, I leave it there and say to you, okay, if this is whatever you want, that's why sometimes you see, let me say, the moment you see people now coming to your house privately, starting to let me say, try and the like, it's not because vanoda kuvandira,
right,
it's because vamwe vanhu vanenge vakuti but iwe weka tarisaka zvimwe zvinhu zvaunoita hazviiti. Handiti, I'm not saying he mustn't ask the question. He must ask the question, it's fine. But the issue is, what is the intention of doing it in public forum? Because you were someone who was even supporting me in whatever I was doing.
right. Okay,
So where is the change of subject? Because the issue is, you are now saying to yourself, oh, the person has changed. So now I think he has got an agenda.
right,
So if the person has got an agenda, now I don't need to be accountable to him, because already whatever I'm going to say is going to crush it.
I hear you.
No, but
So that, to
if
me,
someone
that's where the issue
if you are
is.
saying what is the intention is you say that I'm a liar. You had structures and constitution. So prove it, bring it. Wait, what other intention are you looking for? You are calling me a liar.
I think most,
No, you
I
said I'm
think
a liar.
most
You had structures. Where is the organogram?
nai on gab, some of ndotanga ndakumhorosai asi zivai chinhu chimwe manga muchifamba neni
You see now,
makuti
you are going all
ndaparadzana
over
neni
now. You are looking for
aiwaka
intent.
aiwaka
You are
ndiri
calling
kuda
me a
kutsvagirei
liar. I'm saying if I'm a liar,
no
I'm not going around saying, hey, I'm not a lie. I don't lie. I'm saying if I lied about constitution and organogram, bring it. What other intent are you looking for?
All right. He has been given whatever he wanted. So the issue that you are trying to bring about, I think, is irrelevant somewhere, somehow. The issue is I want to go back to the intention kuti ndanga ndichifamba newe.
No, but you can't prove all of these things. We can
Aiwaka,
always I'm a safer on the speculation spectrum. So we can all safe there.
Right, okay.
Nai on gabu. If you cut me ndisati ndasvika kwandiri kuda kupa intention yangu, then it doesn't serve any purpose.
No, but you can't
so
prove
just have to,
maliciousness.
No, the issue is, please, I think it's my time. My
Yandokupai
it's
ningi
my
2
time.
minutes zvara ningi so that ndafunga yatinzwe vamwe tofambira mberi ningi nechirongwa.
All right. So the issue that has got to do with the intention is just very simple and clear. The moment someone is asking a question, the first thing that should come to your mind is, what is the intention of doing this? Because tanga tichimbofamba tese. Data singafambi tese, I would agree. Because I would say, no, anoda kuziva. But ukazoona kuti munhu anenge anoda kuziva but ane imwe agenda within kuda kuziva, then there is a problem there. No matter how you want to make it. I know, yes, of course, you may have got whatever you have, whatever you are holding. But chimbofunga kuti tiri kufamba tose. Iwo nchiparadzana newe wapedza uniperekedza. Wotanga kuti ngavhayo. What else do you expect me next day ndikakuona kuti pandosongana newe? Kana chitova nenhanhire nebanga chero ndisiri bhinya ndotokugwaza musi uyoyo, kwete nokuti ndoda kukugwaza because ndinenda kusakutrusta. I'm only trying to bring the issue of I have lacked trust in you. So in all these, yes, of course, there is back and forth and whatsoever. The issue that is there is he should have done it, present it in a way that does not even bring let me say another negative thought or another thought to say, but why is he asking me like this? We used to be together. He used to support me. He used to do this together, right? So it means, okay, maybe my silence becomes another fight that someone is creating because there is now expectation gap. And it is that expectation gap that now needs to be bridged to someone to bridge it and say to himself, okay, I think this should be done this way.
Right.
But as long as that expectation gap is not going to be filled anyway, it's going to create more and more and more. But by the end of the day, I think we all know who is who.
Right.
By the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. So in my conclusion, I would just say, you know what? It is very, very difficult to bring the issues of accountability, especially in Zimbabwe currently. The issue of accountability becomes a luxury, not a necessity. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's move on. The great Charumbira, how you doing?
Ndinani angu muri sei sei.
Muje kuri sei ikoko.
Ndonyedza tinadzo hadziperi and dzifana kutongopera futi. But we learn every day. Chakakosha ndechekuti taitei. But even if tisina zvataita zvinobatika, the little that we have discussed zvinotobatsira futi one or the other. In my view, I think the issue andoda kutaura nezvayo ndeaccountability. Kwainotangira ne-leadership nesoma citizens. Ndofunga it's a culture thing. What do I mean? Unoona kuti tichikura paya munotoudzwa kunzi zvavakuru hazvibvunzwi. That on its own is problematic. Hazvibvunzwi zvevakuru. I remember, I'm going to give you an example, you know, inogona kunge zvayo isinei nezvatiri kutaura nezvo, but I think it's very important kuti I was 5 years ndichitaurwa namai vangu pana mai guru vakarohwa nabamukuru, so ndakazvinotisa izvo semwana. Then when I came back, probably I traveled, ndakaenda kwadakaenda ndokudzoka naamai. So pandakadzoka ndakabvunza amai ndikati ko nai maiko paya pakarohwa mai guru nabamukuru vakazorohwazve here? Ndakatariswa neziso ndikatsiurwa zvokuti kana kurohwa ndaifanira kutorohwa. But chandaida kunzwisisa apa semwana mudiki yanga iri nyaya yeaccountability, because the concern was ndaona amai guru vachirohwa. I didn't like it. I could not express myself better as a kid, as a young child. Hapana zvandaikwanisa kunge ndichiita. So zvandiri kuedza kutaura angojezi zvekuti kana kuchikoro chaiko ticha chaivo nemwana havabvunzwi, sabhuku chaivo havabvunzwi. Saka tikaenda kuleadership, you find kuti maleaders edu vanokura vaine pfungwa idzodzo, kuti sezvo ndiri leader handibvunzwi madhisizi andinenge ndichiita sei ndichiita. Saka nesuwo futi tiri magatekeepers tisingazvizivi kuti tiri magatekeepers, because we seem to be supporting a view even if iri wrong, but ndiri kusapota a leader. Tiri kuda kuti tiunze a new leader, not change the system, because the system iyi yatiri kufamba nayo iri wrong. Ndosaka muchiona kuti maleaders anoita zvinhu willy-nilly because hapana chavanocha. Hakuna munhu ane courage of confronting leadership kuti aiwaka izvi hazviiti. Before you even say that, unotoona munhu unotaura zvamunoda kutaurira panapa zvane musoro ndivarani kwava vokutaurisa takunzwai, munotaurisa steriki hazvitaurwa izvi, bvai mbomirai muchazoti moudzwa. Same kana muchidya sadza ipo paya paya unotonzi iwewe mira kunonga nyama ini ndisati ndanonga, haunonge nyama. School fees chaiwo vamwe vana takatozoshaya maschool fees. Ko saka zoita sei kuti tiende kuchikoro haubvunze baba kuti ndipei mari yeschool fees? Hazvibvunzwe izvozvo, it's a taboo. So that culture ndo yatinongofamba nayo even politics. Hakuna munhu anobvunzwa, hationi value in taking accountability, because that on its own ndo inonzi leadership. Kuti inini pandiri panapa handina kungouya, I've got a responsibility to deliver chii ABCD. Saka asingafari ndiani kumafollowers angu vaviri but 20 vari kufara. Rather listen kune 2 vasiri kufara ivavo. Umbonzwa kuti sei vasiri kufara vari 2. You don't need numbers kuti uzoita consider zvokutaura nevanhu, because numbers sometimes haana basa rese, vanogona ngokuteerera kana ngokuvhotera because pamwe they just like you, havana basa nokuti wadeliver here waita sei. So that culture iyoyo nesusu we also need to be accountable, to understand kuti chii chinonzi accountability. Tinofanirwa kuita hold my leaders accountable sei. Saka tinozozvibatira manje kumusoro takutarisa but these people that we elected, that we put in power, they seem to be doing things nenzira yavari kuda. Saka toita sei pandinozotangira kuba regai ndinyarare ndikazobvunzwa pamwe ndinonyimwa kana kamugomo kenhingiri kechibage kembeu ndinozonyimwa handibvunze regai tinyarare. That on its own zvinotopromota corruption, zvinopromota. Saka we deserve better, but isusu toita sei neculture iyo inokuti iri matiri hatibvumire kuti munhu abvunze achitaura kuti zvakati nezvati. We don't listen. Tonotarisa face yako face kuti but iwewe ndiani kuri kumbotaura, voice yake munhu uyu inokodzera here kuti munzwe anoita kunge ana kuenda kuchikoro, no uyu anoita kunge anoziva too much. So that culture iyoyo haisiri kuma-leaders chete, but ma-leaders manje they take advantage, they know. And it's still very easy kutonga, it's very easy to promote and groom ma-dictators. Tega, tozotanga kupointa kuti dictator, but isusu still involved. We do not take a responsibility kuti aiwa, listen, takupa shamari chigaro icho. You have to, we have to make sure zvatakuisira pachigaro ipapo waita izvozvo. Vanoenda vatoita hamatoti sauzi dzakazvatoita mutebvunzwa kuti haimbomirai mani koni inenge vanotaura nezva haimbomirai mani vanotaurisa mbomira kuti hai ndizvo mudhara hamuzoona vanopenga here vanhu havasiyei so munoona hai zanibasa rese vatokwaziva vanhu vaya vaya. That is problematic, and we accept it as the citizens. Tinotorawo nedambudziko ipapo. How do we change that? We do not have to change the leadership, but the system. That system ndo yakanyanya kutoshata iyoyo. Ticharamba tiripo, tigoramba tichibvunza, tigotozoti munoziva ZANU-PF vaitova nani, Mnangagwa waitove nani. Because what we're talking about here, tikutaura nezvajournalists anonzi Hopewell, ma-statements ake anotaura ichokwadi here. Why is it now he's talking like, all right, ndakuripota news, sekutaura kwawaita kuti I must report news because ndiri journalist, kwete kuti ndireport as a friend or someone ari loyal, or maybe ari anenge aine dera akarerekera. Why now? Why are you talking about it now? You see, so all right, ndakuita saizvozvo. Why was he not doing it even before? On its own, he's also, I mean, must take accountable. Why we won't go shit with journalists and reporters? So far, tell one even. And yet now you're asking these questions because the cat is out of the bag. Saka point was say could treat isusu to know understand that you know the accountability. Kuma leaders here, kwatiri isusu iri ma citizens because we deserve better. Hakuna leadership inokandwa nevanhu vanovhoterwa nevanhu isina accountability. And ma-dictators aripo because kune varipo vanotova ma-gatekeepers. Ma-gatekeepers mazhinji vomavatomboziva kuti ndiri gatekeeper because they do not even want to listen. Even ukataura zvakaita seyenza uyo anopenga utomuziva musiye. So ndo zvanoda kunditaure, it's a culture thing. Thanks Ango Jins, it's a culture thing takatokura nazvo. Tozvisiya sei tofanira kuzviunderstanda kuti ma-leaders edu anotongoziva kuti hatizosviki kokumusoro-soro zvevakuru hazvibvunzwe. That's what we believe, and it is very wrong. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you very much. Guys, this is what I want to do. I want to go to Vasatava Tower. I'll say go back to Smarter Than My Boy. And then if I can kindly ask you, Modzika Basi, and then I'll bring in my other speakers. Chongo Pamba Nigitakadaro. So now can I bring in Signor and then on Gabo, you follow. Those are one Smarters, now My Boy, and then Ede Newland. Please go ahead with that order.
Nyamashisho Magadiko.
Signor, the one more
Taku haimchiti taura navakarabva venyu asiti Zimbabwe kati aiwa kasve ari kukurukurwa panapa uyavo tsano vakati ndopindavo. Anyway, thanks for the space. I'll change my line of thought. First and foremost, maZimbabweans tiri pama1 pandare chaipo pama1. Yeah, asi musatye zvinopera izvi, nothing lasts forever. Charumbira, usapindura hako. I beg to differ with you totally. Totally. Zvoto zvine mazera. Kune kunobvunzwa, kune kwadzinotambirwa. Tikadaro taresha. Tashaisha. Tatomboshaisha zvomene-mene pachikaranga. Tirwisane ipapo. Zvoto zvine mazera. Zvida tingangozoverengedza tikazotadza kuisisa zviri panapa. My view is this, Nyamashisha. I partly agree with what Champion said earlier. Kuti ndinyatsokupindurai, bvunzo kwamuri ndokuti in what context, because accountability in simplicity could be problematic if we put it in the Zim context. Mawa mvunzo wangu tamashisha.
Mari?
Ndati mawa mvunzo wangu zvamborehwa paya nemukaranga wezhira uyu tikangotarisa mubvunzo uyu in simplicity mobva manyatsoti muri kutaura accountability in the Zimbabwean context here or general.
We can only speak to this one context. Sorry, guys, I'm being sorry. Go on, senior. Sorry, I'm being distracted. Ndine images ndiri kuona amai venhengirikini vemusikana uyu mukadzi waCollins uyu vakazvamurwa kure zvokutamba. Hey, apakaipa, but anyway, enderai henyu mberi.
Tinotenda. So now in the Zimbabwean context, it's in two parts. I would have loved the topic to say accountability vis-a-vis political power. But I will try to respond to your topic and align it that way. Accountability is something that is achievable, it's possible. But in the Zimbabwean context, and I think I won't be doing justice to myself to say it's a mission impossible without aligning the two. It's intentional. It's by design, meant not to be a possible thing. By design, it means people are in strategic offices to make sure that if my colleague is found on the wrong side, there is somebody. Kutonzwa kuno language yekuti kuna ani wedu zviya kuzvitupa kuna ani wedu. Kazviya nhasi control ndiani ari kuronga. Kazviya kwakati kuna ani wedu murodhi muna ani nhasi. That I think is very important for us, in my view, if we just discuss kungoti zvogozha hazvigoni muZimbabwe without aligning it properly. Political power is the problem. It's the reason why we cannot achieve accountability. Because hatikobvunzwa nesvana svidoko kuti kana zvichikwanisika ichigoneka chokonesa chii. So we can't then hide the fact that there's no separation of powers in our governing system, and it is a fact. Pambotaurwa zvino panapa nhau yebhoti tambotibate shoma. You see, there's a contradiction, and I'm demanding answers in the same line, not that it's a topic. The acknowledgement by the president vis-a-vis the failure to account by Garwe. It's a coincidence. Garwe minister, kwete Garwe president. President wakasvoisa nyaya zvakanaka inoratidza kuti pane appetite accountability. By acknowledging, it means you are like to be accountable. But zvavhagwa paya kunzi bhoti ranga ritori in excellent condition. I don't know whether this time it will be the president aired, because I think it's ndinoda kutoti vagarwe vadzingwe basa, because zvakataura izvi muZimbabwe vanhu havachamatanda muzani pemunovaroya hakunzi varipo. Zvino kutiwo bhoti ranga riri excellent condition iye mukuru wenyika anga atobvuma kare kuti titarise accountability, zvobva zvanetsa. Kunetsa kwazvo kumbanetsa chaiko chaiko, nhasi kutaura chikaranga samunangagwa. So we have a very serious challenge. There's something that Champion said, which is very interesting but disturbing at the same time. Accountability sometimes become more of luxury, if I got you right. Becomes a big problem. Why should it be luxurious? Why should it be a bonus? And we have people that are of or higher of office of authority telling us, "Saka muchaita sei." These are not small boys. It means there's nothing that you can do. Now, if you go and look at it from a different perspective, political leadership, we have people that have been clinging on to power. They betrayed the people of Zimbabwe, the old hood. And handakupuwa mari nako michasi ndotomufarira. It's the one person who I like of all the people in terms of what we're talking about. He said, none of us is a saint. It does not make sense. How do we account? How do we make such people account? It does not make sense. They are arrogant. Amongst them, some have been captured. They've been bought, whichever terminology you can put there. And the sticking issue is, do you have the V11, which is another problematic issue. Sometimes you need to be ethical. You don't need to be caught red-handed for accountability to take place. Ende mutotinonokera nyamasvisva toda vamandazi atikuda kunzwa kuti vagwara totovawisha kuti vatosvika makore 100, because ndiye munhu ane nyaya chaiyo kuti pakapananwa mari. But in terms of accountability, the sticking issue becomes mav11. But vakatiudza kuti mav11 handi kupi zimunguva haapiwi haabvumizi kupiwa. And again, sometimes with the V11, with everything evidence, you can win or you can lose a case in a court of law. So you become a nation which is not honest. And if we're not honest, if we're not ethical, we can talk about it, we can squeeze. Munhu anobvunzwa kuti paita mweya panapa, ndiani waita mweya, kuzoti usimuke pavanhu usuduruke uende kure zviri nani. People have got this tendency of pretending. Kutonongedzera munhu asiri. There are people probably, possibly, who are in prison today, but they didn't do anything. So there's no room for accountability. We can talk and do a comparison, Hopewell, and these people, it's a well-orchestrated crime syndicate, in my view. Tikaodzikadzikana nyaya yacho topesa tabuda pa-accountability. In fact, issue iripo ndeyekuti these people are playing games. They wine and dine at night, during the day. They deceive us. Mapepa achifamba, they deceive us. How do you make Hopewell accountable when some people have researched and realized that, he's not even an investigative journalist? And some people have researched, you can position yourself, you can buy some of these titles. It can be a debatable issue. None of the two is a saint. None of them is a saint. On a lighter note, those who have been on Facebook for the longest time, you have discovered, you have learned. If you haven't, Kasara, ina charumbira kutogona kutongoti toda kuti tisurprise vanhu nhasi. Kuseri kako toenda pamhene papublic, totukana zvikurusa nezvamai nezviweti zvese tapedza todzoka toita chikweyo toti hanhasi tavagona. We have to talk about it. We have to speak the truth in the same line. The impossibility of achieving accountability as a result of political, of fame, or whatever, or for the love of money. It is the reason why we become different from other nations. We can't even dream of accountability when pachinzi zvimwe zvinhu hazvitaugwi nokuti zvinozosvika pana nhingirikiri haakwanisi kuzouya necourt of law. Okay, assuming that there are V11s or there's evidence that money was exchanged, there will be 3-4 people in between, but kwayakabva chako hakufaniri kuzikamwa kuti yakabva kupi. Hakufaniri kuzikamwa kuti yakabva kupi. So we have a big challenge, and I'll land on a sad note, which is a question again, to say, should it be luxury? And if people are not honest, if people are going to continue masquerading as national leaders, continue, as if they are the saint, because there's an issue on accountability. The one who's requesting for accountability, this has got nothing to do with citizens amongst themselves. Could be worse than the person, the one that is saying, I want accountability. So we've got a problem where we are left alone, and we can scream, we can howl. And that being said, unapologetically so, these people, they wine and dine at night. And during the day, they pretend to us, and kunongova nerule matrix yatakasiyirwa navamatema kuti mhosva aibvumwe haubvume kuti ndakaba muzani mune varoi as an example, asi kunove varoi havapo neconstitution inodaro kuti zvimwe zvinhu hazvitaugwi. Let me end here. Let me use my mic. Many thanks.
No, right, son. So for me, with this issue of accountability on a general level, we should have instruments of accountability that are working perfectly. The fact that we don't is why sometimes we feel us as the citizens are meant to be doing certain things. Because the reason why we have a parliament that has representatives is so that they can be handling that for us. We speak through them. That's why they have all these parliamentary committees to be handling all these matters. But because all of that is not functioning, that's why we then burden each other or ourselves with the role of actually taking the action. We shouldn't be doing that in a normal situation. Now, with this issue about Hopo and Nelson, what Hopo is doing, I'm not an expert on this one, but one journalist once told me of the difference between public interest and interesting to the public. And him, as an expert in that field, he knows very well the gray lines. And what he is doing with all this exchange doesn't really benefit nobody. For me, if I had contact with him, I would just ask him to just stop. He is coming in hard because he probably has thought about this for a long time, and he has a lot of things lined up. And as a surfer on the speculation spectrum, when he says bring the constitution of CCC, not that one with your name in it, is he suggesting that he holds different versions? Because even the constitution that you published, Uncle Jet, says it's a consolidation of some sort, meaning there were earlier versions. Is he speaking this from a point of having all the other versions, and even the one that you were asking about, which was submitted to ZEC? I don't know. But he could be holding that, knowing that whenever it's ripe, he can then drop it off. Now, that game doesn't really help us in holding leaders accountable. What I would expect, and I know people might think I'm overreaching, but from all political parties, sorry. What I would expect from all political parties, especially with the experience that we have had with dictators and authoritarians, when anybody sets up an institution that is supposed to set up a new government, they are supposed to lay for us how things will be different in a new country by showing it already in their organization that this is what we are going to be doing. In as much as WOPO is doing this to
win the battle, he does bring genuine questions, which anyone who is on the defense should look at those without really saying, oh, why is he doing it and where is this coming from? Because an organization, I know people are saying, hey, in Zimbabwe, in a situation like we have, having visible structures is going to be dangerous and whatever. When we set up a new government, are we going to be hiding our ministers as well? Because we know we will probably have enemies from outside. When are we going to then decide that, oh, now we are going to stop this? That was just for party politics. This is now national. It's going to be different. Where is it being practiced? So we need to see that. And the way the party itself is supposed to have instruments of holding itself and its people to account, to say this is how we do it. And if it's not done the right way, this is how it's supposed to be resolved. None of that is put in that constitution. The powers that are allocated to the, what is the title? Change champion in chief or something. They are just too much for an individual. Is that what we want? Is that that kind of a leader that says everything else cannot happen without this person? He is this, he is that, he is that. And then the rest, we don't really see how are they positioned and what is their role and what is their influence and what are their powers, what are they going to be executing? If it's going to be people-centered, how are the people organized themselves to say if they don't want this, they can do this to correct that? If those structures are not set up, then what are we doing? So yesterday, I also gave an example of how, in as much as Iran has been facing external threats, their structures, visible ones, have been targeted. But what their people know is when one falls, we know how to replace them. If you kill hundreds, we are not going to bow down. So this idea that just because we have an experience of our structures being targeted is not corrected by not having structures, is corrected by making sure you have systems that can actually replace them and continue with the mandate that you have. Because the goal that you have is not stopped just because the top 30 people have been wiped out. So if we are not expecting these, I'll land here, us as the people, and I agree with, was it Charumbira, to say our issues are more of cultural, and that needs to change. We really need to reimagine how, as a society, we live amongst each other well. Because at this point, what we are just fighting for is a seat at a table that we know is corrupt, an opportunity to lead without really changing the whole system. Because if we are really meaning to change the whole system, it needs to start at the bottom with the people to know that we are not going to be doing how they are doing it. We are going to do it differently. And if they do that, this is how we will counter that. Because we all know what we are doing. We all have the same belief, and this is the direction that we are going. But if we think that we are going to hide it because we know they are going to do that, hiding didn't change anything. Chabangu still came after we were hiding things and did whatever they did and slowed down the process. So how successful is this strategy that we say is going to work for us? So we shouldn't think that individuals will be the ones that will hold institutions accountable. The institutions themselves need to put in place instruments that can make sure that if something goes wrong, we can correct it like this. If people are removed or leave, they will be replaced like this and the system still continues. If there is a bad player inside, they can be spit out by this mechanism and not by just the eyeballs of a certain individuals. I'll rest it there.
I've got a question. Do you know that in the English Dutch common law, you can't just sue a judge, you need to apply? Do you know that? Contrary to the African traditions, but anyway, just food for thought. So it was
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can I Smarters come through and then my boy come through and then I'm going to bring in a set of new speakers. Yeah, but yes, mana kama wakaruwa mana. Yeah, ngawasadaro mana. Zogoma. But anyway, if you sleep with a dog, ukamuka one my fleas, don't complain. Ah, ndikoko. Ndinoijika mari. Mari dzenyika. But anyway, Smarters, take the mic.
Vanoziyana vanhu angu.
Anoziana,
Yeah.
ndikoko.
Ngazvibayane ikoko. Angu ndasimudzira ruoko rwangu kuti ndiresponde kune screenshot yamatumidzira yablessings.
Oh, yeah, naverenga eh.
Yes, I suspect it was coming from OnGab because he put it on the on the chat as well. So I've been
No,
trying.
I was reading it on my timeline.
Okay, no, that's fine. So the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
screenshot was it was put by OnGab. I don't know if it was deliberate for OnGab to put a screenshot rather than the correct link. Maybe the reasons for doing that are quite obvious, right? It would have been much easier since we are dealing with accountability on a space. It would have been much easier to just put a link. Then from that link, you can then follow the chain of a conversation. But if you are out there to push a narrative like what OnGab was doing, you would
Where are
just
you doing this?
hold on.
No, you cannot just say I
Hold on.
was pushing a narrative from
Hold on.
nowhere.
Let me put my
No,
submission.
you can't do that.
Let me put my.
Move on.
Did you
No,
not?
say your points.
Okay, okay, we can move point by point. Okay,
Yes,
go.
say your point. Leave me alone.
Okay, so look at the chat. You put the screenshots.
Yeah,
Then
if you are suggesting that I should have put the
hold
link,
on.
it's
Hold
good
on.
advice. But to
That's
then
fine.
say I have a narrative to push, that's nonsense.
Okay, let me continue with my nonsense.
Yes, please.
Okay, so yes.
Leave my name out of it, like what you are doing.
You should have left my name out of it as well. You are the one who raised my name in the chat, and I'm responding to you. Unlike you, I don't
Because,
hide
because,
behind the chat.
because you
Yes.
assume
Yeah. So you
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 assume the
mentioned my
hope was
name.
saying it out of nowhere.
But you mentioned my name, right? Didn't you mention my name first?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. So now let me respond to you mentioning my name. I'm not gonna leave you out of it because you mentioned my name first.
All right, guys, in
Okay, that's fine. So, guy,
Mm.
Ango, when you're talking about accountability, we need to look at the veracity of our information. So that's the mere fact that Oppo has posted a screenshot. You cannot just take that as authentic, right? You need to verify it first before you start making submissions and claim titles to say you are a safer or for what when you have not looked. Do your homework first, then we can give you the title. Then, if you look at that screenshot angle, now I'm responding to you, right? WOPO made claims first, okay? And these claims were made in response to Nelson Chamisa's post. Yangachi responded to a senator, right? There's a former MDC person who was appointed to be a senator by Mnangagwa, right? Then Chamisa responded to that, right? When he was talking about his experience in politics, to say I've been attacked and all that, right? And it was against this background now then that Opo Chingono decided to post a thesis. And in that thesis, the opening name was Nelson Chamisa. There was no blessings there. There was no Nelson Chamisa saying we had an organization which had a constitution and all that. And in that thesis, he spoke about the fact that, and I'm going to unquote Opo here. Nelson Chamisa founded Triple C and made himself its president, but refused to establish a constitution, elected leadership, or accountable party structures. The only other publicly recognized national officials were spokesperson Fadzai Mahere, whom he fired on the eve of the election, national organizer Amos Chibaya, and deputy spokesperson Gift of Salos Sisiba. Everything else evolved around him. He selected candidates. That's not a lie. That's a lie. He selected candidates controlled decision making, and resisted every call to build a strong democratic institution around the movement. That's a lie. He supported, defended those decisions. That is why this statement is so upsetting and intellectually dishonest. You cannot deliberately centralize the entire political movement around yourself. Personally control who enters its inner circles, refuse institutional safeguards, and then speak as though infiltrators mysteriously arrived through a door controlled by someone else. This is Wopo Chingono, who is not responding to Nelson Chamisa saying, "You are a liar." Okay? So if you look at the whole thesis angle, it's speaking to Nelson Chamisa, attacking Nelson Chamisa, the person called Nelson Chamisa. There is no critical question that was being asked here. There is no accountability, right? That's asked. Because, Uncle, if I were to come and ask you a question, I will not put my hand on the heart. Why would I put my hand on the heart and say I have 10,000, right? If Uncle does that, you have a conclusion already. So what you are just doing is trying to, to sound as if you are a journalist when you're actually in opposition. I don't know if you're opposition. Oh, yeah, in opposition to Nelson Chamisa, right? So that's the issue that we're dealing with here. We have Wopo Chingoyono, who has some personal scores to settle with President Nelson Chamisa. So now he's bringing it to the public forum, to an X, where he asks questions, right? And when he responded, when he's responded to using the same tone that he used, right? He then automatically defaults to the journalist position to say, "No, I'm a journalist. I can ask these questions." No. Being a journalist doesn't necessarily mean that you go out there disrespecting people, lying. Because you can ango mimi nenitoko na kubvumirana pano pa space that the elect when you look at the candidate selection process, right? Nelson Chamisa did not handpick 210 MPs. He's not the one who selected those. Vanhu makaita problem nebereka mwana, yes. Ngatiti okay, bereka mwana, toti bereka mwana yanga yakashata. But we saw people vakabhabhurwa. Hatina kuvaona here vanhu vakaberekwa. Takaona. Hatina kuona here tenda yebiti achienda through bereka mwana, right? Zvikaramba kufaya. So bereka mwana yakaitwa. That was not Nelson Chamisa. I did not see Nelson Chamisa achita se. We discussed on this space angle the four-pronged approach that was used as a candidate selection, right? Process. That was not Nelson Chamisa, right? So guys, it's okay to have balanced submissions to say we have a journalist who's asking critical questions, but as they are asking critical questions, are they asking these critical questions to look for answers, right? But someone who's got a script, they've got an answer. Nelson Chamisa arikutaura about an appointment that was made to say it's unheard of for Mnangagwa to appoint a senator from the opposition. That's just unheard of, right? Instead of us looking at that appointment, now the issue is shifted to Nelson Chamisa. That's what Wopo Chingono did, right? You look at the whole thing, Nelson Chamisa is under attack. And it was against this, that's when he said, Wopo, I think it's good if you're a journalist, right? You really need to make sure that you are factual, you don't push around lies that are there for everyone to see. So that's where accountability is. So when you're looking at these issues, the person who provoked everyone else is Wopo. He did not ask my questions as a journalist, but he came out attacking the person of Nelson Chamisa, right? Using lies. And that was just unfair and uncalled for. Is Nelson Chamisa perfect? No, he's not perfect, right? I have had issues with Nelson Chamisa myself, right? Issues that I've, in terms of his decision making or in terms of whatever strategies that he implemented, right? It's okay for us not to agree on strategies. But the moment now I try to attack the person called Nelson Chamisa using lies, I don't think it's fair. It's not objective. So let's put the points out there, deliberate and discuss the points, right? If you don't agree on points, let's not agree on points, not reducing things to personal attacks. That's just not fair. Not even a constitution, an opposition constitution would have saved us from ZANU PF, right? The only thing that will always save us from ZANU PF, and I'll repeat the same thing today. It's not an election, it's not a constitution, not structures. The only thing that's going to save us is when citizens realize that we've got power to protest against this regime, right? And through these protests, we bring them to a reasoning table. That's the only thing that ZANU-PF will understand, not constitutions. Who do you want to interpret those constitutions? You cannot call for structures. You cannot, guys, this is not, yes, I know people, they speak about organograms and all that. There is a difference between an organogram and a political structure. So let's not take our private businesses organizational charts. Now we try to bring them in a political context, especially for Zim for that effect. Those things will not work in Zimbabwe as long as you don't have the military to kill people, as long as you don't have the jails, as long as you don't have the courts that you have captured to make sure that kana munhu akatadza kukuteerera iwewe either munomuraya or munomupanicha through vana zvakaitwa vana chimombe munovavharira kujeri, zvakaitwa Job Scala munomuvharira jeri morasa makeys. As long as you don't have that as opposition, you need to meet ZANU-PF in a language and approach them in a language that they will understand, not even a constitution. The moment pamoda ngoita organizana ZANU-PF yakutokunzirai kuti mutemo nekuti munofanira kutanga manotsvaga tsamba yakati muzoita that will not work. ZANU-PF thrives in chaos. So the only way we can defeat them is to make sure that meter in that chaotic environment, we protest against them as citizens. Then we resist all forms of oppression coming from ZANU-PF, not through constitutionalism. Kana kuisa ma constitutions and structures. I don't agree on those points. Thank you.